MSNBC. You were a left of center guy over there. Did you have a favorite during the primary? Did Donald Trump convince you right away that he's the guy that you like, or did you like someone in the Democratic primary? Was there anyone you were supporting?
Well, Bernie Sanders is a very good friend of mine, and I still, even though I'm at RT now and a lot of relations have been severed and, so to speak, disconnected because I'm anchoring the news on RT America, Bernie is still a very good friend of mine, and I did support him. My wife contributed monthly to his campaign. I guess when I got to MSNBC in 2009, I brought Bernie Sanders to cable probably more than anybody else. He was a senator, rather obscure, from the small state of Vermont. And, of course, I was new to the cable world, and so I had Bernie on my radio show numerous times, and so I put him on TV. And the more we put him on, the more I told my team, I said, you got to listen to this guy. I mean, this is where our listeners are on the Ed Schultz radio show. This guy is speaking to the millennial. He is speaking to the younger generation. He is speaking about a future. He's somewhat Kennedy-ish, so to speak. He had a vision for the country. He talked about change, and I thought that he was going to go. And he did. And I thought he was going to take off politically, and eventually it took him years, but he did. And so Bernie is a good friend, and I believe in what he stands for.
Do you still talk to him? Are you still contact with him?
During the campaign, I interviewed him 4 times, and I have visited with him post-campaign just a few times.
Yeah.
But I haven't talked to Bernie probably in a year.
Uh-huh. And he won't come on your show now?
I haven't asked him. I don't want to put him in that position. I think the Senate has pretty much made an erroneous determination about who we are and what we do and how we function, which I think is very sad. Yeah. And I think that, we're just in a different arena as far as what they want to do.
And we'll get into that a little bit. But
sure.
Let me ask you, you left MSNBC in July 2015, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
You started at RT, I think, the beginning of the following year.
I started RT January 1st of 2016. Right. So I was idle in the business. I was doing a podcast. Yeah. I was idle in the business from middle of July until the end of the year.
So my question is, how would you describe working at MSNBC versus RT? What are the differences? What are the similarities?
Well, I appreciate the question. This is the best job I've ever had in my 42 years of broadcasting. It's the best company I've ever worked for. It's the most freedom I've ever had. And I have really grown on the level of international knowledge and foreign relations, which has been very career rewarding. I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to interview
with RT?
With RT. Been able to interview numerous people from different countries that have a totally different perspective than what Americans have. I'm doing real journalism. It's not opinion. I anchor the news. I facilitate a discussion, and I enjoy this role very much. It's really been a real pleasure working here for the last 2.5 years, and I really don't know when I'm going to give it up. I'm enjoying it that much.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Ed.
But let me go back, if I may, because you said, what are the differences?
Yes.
And I want to make this very clear, and I hope your audience consumes this. There was more oversight and more direction given to me on content at MSNBC than there ever has been here at RT. And I think that it's very sad that that story is not getting out. I think it's many times I was told what to lead with on MSNBC. Many times I was told what I was not going to do, and I've got a story that had I not been involved in it, I would have never believed it. And Phil Griffin, who I consider a friend to this day, was a watchdog, far more than anything I am exposed to here at RT America.
Did he tell you what to say? Did he tell you an angle to take?
Often. In fact, when Bernie Sanders was announcing that he was going to be a candidate for the nomination of the Democratic Party in Burlington, Vermont, I was the only cable host between Fox, MSNBC, and CNN that was there live to cover it. Now, there were live cameras there, but we had coordinated with the Sanders campaign that at 5 o'clock he was going to make his announcement, and we were going to cover this on the Ed Show. I go to Bernie Sanders' house that afternoon, an interview in the backyard, about a 15-minute interview. The grandkids are running around. It's a big day for the Sanders family. He's going to announce that he's running for president. We're going to carry it live later on in the day, and we're going to run this one-on-one tape with Bernie. 3,000 people are there on Lake Champlain. It's 5 minutes to air, and I get a phone call from Phil Griffin, "You're not covering this." I said, "Phil, Bernie Sanders is announcing he's running for president. He's going to be a president. I don't care. You're not covering this." And it got rather contentious. And
Why, though?
I don't, well, now you're asking me for opinion. I'm giving you fact right now about what happened. Mm-hmm. And other people who were there with me will attest to the fact and back me up that this is what happened. We were told that we had to cover something down in Texas that was totally meaningless, and another press conference in Baltimore, which was already had been in the news for a few days. We're covering Bernie Sanders live. We're coordinated with his campaign. And I'm told 5 minutes before, "You're not covering Bernie Sanders." Now, let me give you the opinion. I think the Clintons were connected to Andy Lack, connected at the hip. I think that they didn't want anybody in their prime time or anywhere in their lineup supporting Bernie Sanders. I think that they were in the tank for Hillary Clinton, and I think it was managed, and 45 days later I was out at MSNBC. And I thought it stunk. They gave me my contract. I signed a non-disclosure agreement and also a no bad-mouthing agreement, which I felt good with because I thought that this was over time all going to wash out. And I knew if Bernie Sanders didn't win, he was going to run again because the man is determined. So I was patient and took my money and went on. But the fact of the matter is I think I've got a hell of a story to tell. And when you see how the campaign unfolded, Donna Brazile feeding Hillary Clinton questions at the campaign, the DNC undercutting Bernie Sanders, the superdelegates that were organized by Hillary Clinton. I mean, in my state of Minnesota, where I'm a resident and pay taxes, Al Franken and Amy Klobuchar were superdelegates, and despite the fact that Bernie Sanders won Minnesota, they supported Clinton. It was the fix was in. The fix was in with the mainstream media. The fix was in with managing the news and shutting down Bernie Sanders. And it wasn't until he started matching the Clintons and raising money that he became, well, we got to cover this guy. But from the start, the Clintons didn't want any competition. They didn't want Bernie Sanders around. They didn't want the Keystone XL pipeline. They didn't want to push her on that issue. They didn't want to push her on free education for all, and they certainly didn't want to push her on the TPP and also universal health care. Those were four main issues that Bernie Sanders, had he not been in the campaign, Hillary Clinton would have never had to address. And so I think the fix was in early on to Deep Six Bernie. To this day, it kind of pisses me off. Because they talk about collusion. There's nothing more than collusion than this.
Well, let me go and